Hello, all. Good morning, good evening, or good afternoon, based on wherever you're looking at it. Now, before we begin, let me try to do as everybody does a humble request that if ever a video from this channel have helped you or have solved your problem, please do subscribe to the channel. It helps us to understand how we are doing, and make sure to press that bell notification so that you get notified about each and every new video posted on this channel. And if there are problems, please do let us know into the comments. Whatever your problems are, we'll try to solve them. Okay, so let's talk about the story as of today. So today I received a comment saying, can I replicate my Business Central 14 environment to Business Central 25 cloud? And that made me thinking that I never did a replication video from a non-similar version on cloud to similar version or non-similar version on-prem, and it's the right time to do that. Now, why this is the right time to do that we'll discuss at the end of this video, so stay with me till then. If you know how replication works, maybe this video is not for you, and that's okay. But in this video, we'll understand how you can replicate your environments from Business Central 14 to Business Central 24 directly to Business Central 25 cloud. It's a complete replication guide, so I'd highly encourage don't miss this. Okay, so let's understand the environment. For the demo, I have a Business Central 14 environment which have three companies: banking, IT, telecom, just to name a few. And then it has our favorite customization that you see in every upgrade video that I do. The customer table have three fields, custom fields. In the similar way, vendor table have custom fields, and then there is a custom table. And all these are coming from our extension. So if you go into the extension management in Business Central 14, you will notice that there is a custom extension, and this extension brings out those fields which you are looking at. You can do learn more if there is an help article, and it takes you there, right? So the learn takes you to the help link that you have, and this is our company website for that. Now, opening the company website also reminds me that if you have any business related query, either helping you with your upgrades, helping with your development needs, trainings for sure, do let us know and we'll be happy to engage with you. But okay, coming back to the story. So this is the environment which you would like to replicate to Business Central Cloud. Now the first thing that you need to know is you need to know which country or which localization you're using. Now there are different ways to know it. You can either identify it from here using the version tag, or you can rely on PowerShell. So how you do it from PowerShell? From PowerShell, do a get-nav application and specify the server instance and the service name. This will give you all the info, which is what is the database server, what is the database name, what is the application version, and then what is the application family. Now application family will tell you the localization, which is ES in this case. So you need to make sure that you have a similar application family database in matching Business Central family database on Business Central Cloud, surely on version 25. So if you notice, I have a replicate environment of type sandbox, and the country or region is ES. The environment version is 25.3, which is latest as of today, and I have recently created it just now. Now before we move further, let's have a look. This environment have Cronus ES and company. There's no other custom companies on this. And then if I look at the capacity of the database, or how much size this database has, the replicate stands at 0.06 GB. Okay, so we are good here. Now things to remember: one, for doing this process, you need to make sure that there are no customizations in CAL, specifically from tables and table field perspective. All the customizations should have been moved to extension. So if you look at it, there are no tables or table extension, tables which have been modified, and there are no new tables. So you should bring your database to this stage where there are no customizations at table level in on-premise Business Central 14. Anything that is there is in extension like I have. The second thing, which is part of the question, another question is why all my tables are not replicating. Like somebody said, changelog entry is not replicating. Now remember, the only tables which get replicated to cloud is tables where replicate data is set to true or default to true. But if the replicate data is set to no, those tables will not be replicated. Now remember, don't come here and change this property because it's not gonna take that. It's set by Microsoft for their tables. So if any table that you see does not get replicated, do come back and check is the replicate data is set to yes or no. Now why Microsoft does that? There are certain reasons why Microsoft sets replicate data to false, because of that data is irrelevant on cloud or may not be required on cloud. Like for example, users from on-prem does not replicate to cloud because there are different users. In the same way, changelog entries in some customer database is quite a significant size. Now we need to understand that cloud comes up with a limited space. As in, you can surely buy more space, but what's the point if you're paying for the space just to maintain your changelog entries? So that's the reason Microsoft does not replicate changelog entries. Does your customer want it? Understand the cost of bringing those to cloud and the cost of space that will consume. So remember that. So there will be quite a few tables, not business operational related table, which are set to replicate data, no, and those table will never replicate. Hopefully that question is also clear. Let's see the other table, which is user, okay, and record links is a candidate, at least in BC 14, which does not replicate, and even till Business Central 23 or 24, the table does not get replicated. So these tables don't go to cloud. The data on these tables does not go to cloud. Now here again you will see on the user table the replicate data is set to no. So all these tables where replicate data is no, the data is not going to replicate to cloud. If you have any problems like that, do check that. Okay, so we have talked about what it is, how much it takes, what you need to take care, you need to have a matching environment and all those things. Now let's come to the process. Now understand it. You have a Business Central environment running on premise, which majorly consists of three components. One is your web client or your role tailor client. The second one is your service tier, and third and the major important client part is your SQL server. The replication works on a SQL database. It doesn't care if your service is running, it doesn't care if your Windows client is active or not. None of these matters. The only thing matters in a replication is SQL Server. So the data from SQL Server moves to Business Central Cloud. Now how you know what tables you have in your extension? Go to your extension management, and here you'll notice that this extension have a GUID. Now till Business Central, some of the version, I guess till 22, the SQL had a different way of storing the data coming from extension. So now if I come here and I filter table names with this, you'll notice that there are some tables. For each there is a customer and there is a vendor table extension, and then there is this EDC custom sample entries, which is a table that we have created just for a new table reference. This table has some data which brings everything. So if I do a select star, we'll just see the count. Okay, So there are 2297 records in each of these company for this particular table. Okay, so we are good here. Now let's start the replication process. Head up to your cloud, log into your environment where you want to replicate this, and then here search for cloud data migration. Okay, uh, cloud, something like that. Yeah, cloud migration setup. Now when you search for cloud migration setup, it helps you with the wizard of how you need to configure it. Now here it says welcome to on-premise business central cloud data migration setup. Warning, migration data from on-premise to your cloud solution may override any existing data in your business central cloud tenant. Refer to help. You need to make sure that the companies that you are replicating, like we saw that there are 3 companies, they should not exist on the cloud. If they do, the data will be overwritten. The migration process leverages the Microsoft Azure Data Directory, which may offer varying level of compliance. Refer to the privacy notice, and then you need to accept the privacy notice. Once you click next, at this point, you need to choose from where, what is your source from where you are replicating the data from. In my case, that becomes Dynamics 365 Business Central earlier version. Now, the only time you choose the first option when you are on version 25 in this case, or the matching version to cloud, maybe a different CU, that's okay, but you should be on the same major version. If you are on a different version, then you choose earlier version. Once you have done that, you are allowed to move next. Now there are 2 options to connect your on-premise or the source database. One is that your customer might be using SQL Server hosted in-house, or they might be using Azure SQL. So you need to choose the option based on what they are using. In my case, I'm using local SQL Server. At this point, it says enter the connection string to your SQL Server. Now, I don't know what's the format of it. The easy way is tooltip. So when you click on this field, it gives you a tooltip that you need to provide your SQL connection string in this format. Ignore the first colon. I don't know why Microsoft uses this, but this is the format. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it on a notepad for simplicity. It says give it your server name. So let me go here, pick my server name, which is localhost in my case. And I don't have an instance, so I can do a localhost, or you can name the server, either ways. My database name, which is bc14-es. Okay, the user ID and the password. So it means that you need to have a database login and a password to your SQL Server. Now for that, make sure that you have enabled the, where is that? SQL Server and Windows authentication mode. If not, you'll have to enable it and restart your SQL Server. If it is enabled, you will have a SQL user. For the demo, I'll just keep it simple. I'll create a new login. I'll name it as replicate demo. And for simplicity, and don't do this, make sure that you follow the policy. I'll just keep the same password. Replicate demo. Don't try this. This user is going to be deleted after I did it. I'll delete it. Okay, so my username is this, and my password is also the same. Make sure that in the actual environment you ask your IT administrator to create a user and a password for you, and make sure they enforce the password policy, because you don't want anyone to get connected to your database. Once you click on it, you will see that the user is created. And then as for anything, we need to make sure that this user is mapped to my database and have rights to execute or to perform operations on this particular database. So I do that. Just to verify that everything is correct, I'll just try to connect again. This time I'll do the username, the password, and try to connect it. Okay, that's something else. Okay, I'm able to connect and I can access the database. Not this one, tables. So I have access to this particular database, and this is what you need to make sure that you have the access. So my connection string, which is server, the server name, database, database name, user ID, and the password is here. I'll just copy this string and come back to my cloud migration setup and paste this. Now it says if you already have an integration runtime installed and you want to reuse it, then you can paste it here. I prefer to uninstall this integration runtime and reinstall it whenever I need it. That way there is no confusion at this point. So I prefer to uninstall it, and I'll tell you what I'm going to uninstall in a while. So I'll click next. It'll verify that my connection to my SQL server is happening with the string or not, and then it'll say download the self-hosted integration runtime. Now it may take a while, so I'll read rest later. I'll say download, and I prefer always to pick the latest one. There's 545, 5.46.4748490. It's a pretty big exe, so let me download that. Now this is the integration runtime software that I was talking about. You need to download it and install it. So how you do it? You download it, then you install the integration runtime on your server, then you use the authentication key which is listed here to connect your integration runtime with your cloud environment, and then once everything is done, you choose to next to that, saying that everything is working fine. So we'll have to wait for it to download and then have to install it. So what I'll do is I'll pause the video for a while so that you don't have to kind of wait for it, and then we'll resume it. So finally this has been downloaded. Didn't took much long, but okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to install this. So hopefully this click worked. Hopefully, yes. So now it's a window installer. So it's like any other software that you install. You just start hitting next, 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 accepting the terms, deciding the path. It takes quite a good amount of space on your system. So make sure that you have that kind of space, approximately 3-4 GBs. So make sure that you have that much space available on your disk so that this can get installed. Now once this gets installed, we'll start configuring this, and once the configuration is done, I guess we'll at that point be ready to start replicating our data to cloud. Now as I said earlier, you can follow these steps from Business Central 14 to Business Central 24, any version of Business Central at that moment, and even any localization. I'm just showing it for ES, but you can actually technically do it for any country. The steps remain same. The only thing that you need to remember if you are on Business Central 14, that there are no customs in your CAL. And if you are in AL, which is Business Central 15 and higher, make sure that your base and system apps or any other apps which you don't own are not modified, which I don't think you have. But if there are those scenarios, then you cannot use it as it is. So as we move forward with this, hopefully the status of this installation will be over, and then we'll see what happens next. Okay, so the installation is over. Let's hit finish. Okay, that pops up the install software. Now what we'll do is we'll copy the authentication key from here, go ahead and paste it here, and then we'll do a register. Now this is the time where your integration runtime is getting connected to your localhost environment, which it is done, and I'll click the finish. That completes the registration process and also connects it to your Business Central Cloud environment from where you are kind of configuring this. So let's see how long it takes. It hardly takes a few minutes to few seconds to a minute, and it should be over anytime. Now once it is done, then we go back and verify in our cloud environment that we have configured it and we are good for you to move ahead from the starting the process. Now this is done. We come here and we click next. At this point, when you click next, it verifies that all the connections that you have set up are being set up correctly or not. Behind the scene, if you are interested, what happens is there are some stored procedures and some tables are being created on your local SQL server so that it can kind of keep an eye on your replication process. So it doesn't happen in a disconnected mode. It actually makes sure that things are done in the right way. So as soon as this is done and your SQL gets connected to your cloud environment, we'll be good at that point to kind of start the replication process. Now it's verifying that, and it's very hard to see it here, but sometimes you'll notice if it's a big database that things are being created at this moment here. Okay, so let's wait for it. And while this is happening, I don't know I can show it to you or not, but okay, one more thing that we forgot. At this point, we did create a new environment on cloud, which is this environment, PC25, but we never installed our custom extension into it. Now what will happen in that scenario? The match that happens to copy the data from your on-premise to cloud is based on the table name on the SQL server on-premise, as well as table names which are available on the cloud. Now yes, to have tables on the cloud, you need to have the companies created, which the process will do after this step. But to have the extension table available, we need to make sure that we have the extension available in our Business Central Cloud environment, which we haven't done. So what I'll do is I'll open a separate tab of the same environment while this is happening, and I'm going to install our extension, which we have. And in my extension management, now this will add our tables into the pool of tables for which the data will get copied. So let's go ahead and pick the app. I'm not sure where I kept it, but I think it's in the documents, not in the documents, AL, and I'll pick the version 25 compatible app that I have. Now this will add the new tables and the table extension that I have created in the extension into the pool of the tables that need to be considered for copying the data from your on-premise environment to your cloud environment. So we'll wait for this to install. It'll take some time. And it says there's an error message that your SQL database must have a compatibility level of 130 and higher, which I forgot to say. And BC14 environments are not 130 and higher. So I'll have to go to options, make sure that my SQL server is set to the latest compatibility label, and click OK. Now at this point, this is just checking everything that's needed for it. So let's verify that this extension is installed or not. Oh, there are some errors because I think I don't have the permissions associated with it. Yes, I don't have the permission, so I'll just do that and then we'll restart this installation process. Okay, so I did add the permission and the extension is here. So our tables will also be part of the pool that need to be get copied. Okay, coming back here, let's click next. Now at this point, we have set all the properties. We also have added our custom extension into Business Central Cloud, which should be the first step, which I missed. And we should be good at this moment. So let's do a quick check. You need to know what is your Business Central on-premise environment with localization, create a matching environment, Make sure that your custom extension that you have in on-prem, one or multiple, are also available on your cloud environment where you are copying the data. Make sure that your SQL compatibility level is 130 or higher for your SQL database. Start the cloud migration management setup. Provide the connection string, which requires your server name, database name, a username, and a password to connect to the database. The user that you create on your SQL server should have rights of DB owner on the database so that it can perform the transaction. Once done, the cloud migration setup will ask you to download the integration runtime. Download that, install the integration runtime. It takes quite a good amount of space, so make sure you have the space available on your system. And then once you install it, you will need the authentication key to connect it, the integration runtime, to your cloud environment. Connect that and click next. As soon as all this happens, there's surely some activity hopefully happening on the SQL server to create the interaction between the cloud and on-premise environment. Now at this point, once all that is done, we'll be good at that moment to start the replication. As you see, there is some changes happening on your local SQL server, and I'll just close these. These are of no use. I just close the client and development environment. Now let's wait for this to connect on working on it, and we'll be good at that moment. Okay, so once this is done, as you can see, now you see an option to select companies to migrate. Now, which means that if you have some test companies on your on-premise and all, you don't have to delete them while you are migrating your database to cloud. You still get an option to choose which company. You can surely choose all the companies if needed, which I can simply do by clicking on this, or you can choose one or multiple companies that you would like to bring forward to cloud. Now remember that the database size is 0.05 GB here. The other thing that you need to remember that once you go to Business Central Cloud, your data at SQL level will be compressed at a page level with page level compression. So the database size on your on-prem versus on cloud will be significantly lower on the cloud because it compresses it applies page level compression on all the Microsoft extension tables. So once we do that, once you choose one or multiple companies that you would like to replicate, you can just hit next, and that's it. You can finish the setup. The cloud migration setup has been finished. I'll ask you to pop up the cloud migration management window once we finish this. So I've clicked the finish button. I'm just waiting for that pop-up or the dialog box to ask me that do I want to open the cloud migration management page. Now this is the page where you manage all your data migration activities. So or replication steps more or less. So you click finish and that pops up a new page called cloud migration management. Now first thing first, as we said, that the data replication process does not account for your what we call that service tier. It does not interface with your client. It directly connects to your SQL server. And to have the matching table name on the cloud, it needs to create the companies. So the first step that the cloud migration management step does, it starts creating companies. It may take a while based on how many companies you have, and you can always check with the refresh status of what's happening. So right now you are trying to replicate 3 companies. There has been 0 replicated and there are a total of 3 companies. Now it's right now creating companies, so we'll wait, and in the meantime we'll check other options. This step will start the replication. You can only do it after the company's creation is done. We'll talk about data upgrade later. Refresh status, you can keep on clicking it to see the change in the status if it is not happening. Then you have the complete migration, pause migration, and kind of discard your migration if you don't want to do it. So you can either complete, pause, and uh, kind of discard your migration from this option. Then you have manage custom table, which is a completely separate process. I don't want to go there at this moment. Then there is a define user mapping. Now this option is used when you have some users on-prem and you would like to map them to your SaaS users. You can click on this window after the replication, and then you can map your on-premise user to a SaaS user that you have on cloud, and that way you'll be able to use that. So this option you choose after the replication is over. Then there is a diagnostic run, and then there should be multiple actions. Let's talk about it. Reset cloud data, which kind of removes or reset the data that has been brought. You want to get the runtime integration key. If you want to rerun it, you can just get it from here. You can reset the integration key so that next time you have to do it. You still have an option to select companies to replicate before you start data replication. You can still choose that I only want, even the companies created, I only want to replicate X company, and I'll choose that. Repair companion table record. Now this happens, and this used to happen very frequently in the past, that the data has been replicated but you can't see custom extension data on the client. So this is suggested to run after your replication is over, that you repair the companion table records and you'll be able to see them. There's nothing. Sanitize table is an option to kind of you should have done it in on-premise using the invoke nav sanitize field. If you don't know about it, let me know, we'll talk about it. These are new options, and this is API upgrade. Now in some customers the API data can be huge, and then API upgrade can take a lot of time. So if in that scenario you would like to pause the API data upgrade for a while and then run it later after the upgrade, you have an option to disable that and then enable it later. These are the same options that you see here, so nothing much here. Let's refresh this, and it says ready for replication. So now if I go to my settings, I should be able to see that I actually have all my 3 companies available, which are not replicated at this moment, but they are created. So I'm good there. So the company creation has been completed. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna start the replication. So as you start the data replication, what it'll do, it'll create a list of tables that are found in cloud SQL database, and then we'll try to find a matching table on your on-prem environment. Now if it finds it, then it counts the record on your on-premise environment, and then in a batch it starts copying that data into your cloud environment. And you can see that, you can surely see it here, but you can also see it at this place. You can click on table successful, which will show you nothing because nothing has been done yet. But if you come here and remove the filter, so let's see, nothing yet. No, okay, nothing yet. Let's see. Table successful. Nothing shown because I guess it's still trying to prepare that. Okay, so we'll see that once it starts doing it. All objects. Okay, this is just a cloud list. Okay, we'll have to wait for it to initialize things, so we'll just do a refresh. Let's see what happens. You can notice that start time and it's still in progress. There's nothing, no movement yet. There's no table successful, there is no table failed. Let's see, is anything happening on my SQL server? So when I go to my SQL server, I don't see any query being ran at this moment on this particular database. It's doing some selects and all, We're just trying to build that list to see what's happening on what's the table and how many tables are there. So if I refresh it, I'll see that it's still in progress and my table successful is still 0. Okay, nothing yet. Once it starts replicating, and we'll have to keep refreshing it in a while to see, as in you can wait for a while just to see once it starts, and once you see at least one table in the table successful count, you'll be good at this moment, at that moment. So let's wait for a while and then let's see what happens. Okay, it seems the initialization part is over because now I can see table remaining and table successful. So now if I click on 2412, which is the table remaining count, I'll see all the tables that are available in cloud. Now remember the word that I'm saying, in cloud. Okay, so what's happening is, let's see what's in progress first. Nothing in progress right now. Okay, let's see, are there any failed warning tables? Nothing yet. They'll start eventually with warnings and this. Okay, so these are the table names which are available on cloud, not on on-prem. Now on cloud, there will be more tables and table extensions. The reason being because each extension that is available on cloud will surely have its own tables, and also they might be extending Microsoft table. So the list here is showing you all the tables which are available on the cloud. Now all these tables will not be available on your on-premise environment because your on-premise environment varies based on what kind of extensions you have on-prem and how many tables are there. So don't worry if you see an error message, because the message will tell you what kind of error it is. So we'll come back and let's refresh it to see what's happening. Still count is 0. Still trying to kind of start the process, and let's see, let's click on it again and let's see in progress. Do we have anything? Nothing yet. We still have to wait while the system starts initializing its counter. Once it does that, it'll start the replication. So we'll hold for a while. Okay, not to my surprise, but there are 8 tables which are already processed. So when I click on it, it tells me that these are the tables which has been successfully processed. Now let's see what happened. Okay, because there are some details here. This table was total record on the source table, which is on-prem, or 11, and on the target table now are 11. So that has been processed 3311, and then we see this. It says the total of records in the target table is unavailable since the table is protected, so isn't possible to calculate if there is a difference between source and custom. Now this table is marked as protected, so it is not showing you the count, but if it is marked as successful, it has been completed. Now we'll see what tables has been failed, because there are a lot of tables which would have been failed. So let me refresh this. You'll notice that 8 will change to 705, so it's running pretty fast right now. So now if I see failed and don't see in progress and not started, I see nothing. Do I see warnings? Yes, and that's what important part is. Now in the warning section, you will notice that there are so many tables where it says the table does not exist in the local instance. Now what does that mean? That means this table exists on the cloud environment, like feature data management, tenant feature key, because these were not features which are available in BC14, even on an extension. So this table does not exist in a local instance is not a problem. It means that you are not having these extensions available in your source environment, and that's why you see all these warnings. Do read them. If they come to a custom table that you have or a queue that you have, then you might be missing something else. but otherwise these warnings are safe at this moment. There's nothing that has failed, I guess. It's all good there. We can see what's in progress. Okay, right now interstate setup is being copied, and then we can see how much is not yet started. You'll notice there are quite a few tables which not has been yet completed. They have not been yet started. So you'll just start one by one. The only thing that you need to keep in mind that it only take care of the tables which are available on cloud. So if I search for our table, if I have it here, if I can do that, let me see. I cannot. Okay, let me see. Status removed. I don't see that. Okay, let me filter on 50,000. Okay, I have a table at 50,000 called EDC sample entry. So let me copy this and search for it. Okay, so you can search for the tables here and then see is that data copied or not yet. I don't see that table at this moment, so I need to wait for it. It's still in progress, I guess. Let's see. Now we also need to understand that these tables are stored differently in your on-premise and the cloud environment because of the different versions. BC14 has a unique table per extension, whereas in BC25 and higher they kind of get merged and all. So let's see. Okay, so now it says that it has completed itself with 1798 tables completed. Can I search for my table? Let's try again. Okay, I don't think so I can, but let me see. Okay, I don't see it here, which is a little bit confusing to me. I should be able to, but what I can do in the meantime is I can go head up to the same environment but on a different tab, and I can go for table info and then look for my table. Do I find that or not? If, because I did install the extension on a separate tab and I'm not sure, but it should pick my table. I doubt that it will not pick my table. So let me refresh the status again to see what happened. It says 1798 has been completed, which is good. So let me filter on table number 50,000, and if you notice all of these EDC sample entry other than my company and Cronus, which is their default company, has 2297 record, which if you remember we checked on SQL on-prem. Okay, coming back here, is everything over? Not exactly, because what happened when you run the data replication is based on your source version, the data got stuck into the schema of that version. But version 25 has a different schema because there has been changes between version 14 or whatever your source version to the version 25 at this moment, and those changes will impact your data and how the data is stored in different tables based on the upgrade routine that has been written between these versions. Completing the data replication does not complete that. It just copies the data as it is. So like at this moment, even if I'm using the new pricing engine, the data will be on the old pricing engine and so on and so forth. So to make sure that my upgrade is complete, if I'm not coming from the similar version on-prem, which is this case, we have to run the data upgrade. Now remember, this should be the last step that you run, because you will not be able to run the upgrade again if upgrade is successful. Before you start upgrade, make sure you have moved all the companies that you wanted to move, and you should not replicate additional on-premise data, because once the data is upgraded, you can't go back. So if you have let's say chosen one company earlier, make sure to choose the other company and replicate it. Complete all your replication step and then at the end run the data upgrade. Now as soon as you click yes, you'll not be able to access this environment because upgrade steps run on an offline environment more or less. So as soon as I click yes, I'll lose access to this environment and I'll only be able to see it on my admin center. So if I refresh the step here, you will see that the status is updating and I'll not be able to access this environment at this moment. I'll say you cannot access this environment. So your environment gets into the state updating where it is executing all the upgrade step that Microsoft have written from or your ISVs have written from your source version to the target version. And while you try to access it or any other user, it tells you that we are doing some maintenance and wait for some time. The only place that you can check it is operations, if I'm not wrong. And here it'll tell you you can filter it on your environment if needed. Here it'll tell you that it is updating or upgrading your environment, which has been started at this time and is still running. Now how much time this will take? That depends on how much data that requires updation. Now because we are coming from business channel 14, this might be quite a good amount of data based on how many changes Microsoft have done, but you will have to wait for it. The only thing that I showed you in the cloud migration management is you can pause your API upgrade and then park it and do it later. That's the only option. Other than that, every upgrade step need to be executed if you are not updating or replicating from a matching version. This step is not required when you are replicating from the matching major version. So now if I come back here, I should see that my data upgrade is completed. So I can go back here, refresh this page, because now my environment is accessible. I should be able to open my cloud migration management page again. Okay, it says upgrade completed successfully. Great. Now before I move forward, I can do a defined user mapping, and then I can map this or multiple on-premise user to a cloud user that I have. And then once you have mapped all the user, click OK. That will update the table. Okay, it will only update user specific open transactional data. So if there are any open transaction with this particular user, this is going to update it. Now if you have 20 users and you only want to map 5 in cloud, you can just do that, but do it in one go. Don't say, oh, I have done first user, I'll click on this page again and do it for second user. It only happens once. So once you close this, you can't come back and access it. So it's changing that, and hopefully it did change that. So at this point, all the open transaction which was matched to my open user on-prem user has been completed. What else? User mapping we have done. Now come back here and make sure, as I talked about, repair the companion table record. Now this step, make sure that all your companion table on SQL Server, which is your tables coming from extension, the data is visible on the screen. Okay, anything else at this moment? I don't think so. Okay, the last thing, and very important, people forget this. Now let's see what happens when you forget this. That's, because there is always a thing that is associated with something that you don't complete. Now at this point, if I go to my, let's try permission page, which should have a lot of permissions because that data does not get replicated. I see all my permissions, which is great. Oh, I'm on a different environment right now. I need to go back to my replicate environment. Okay, I was like, why I see Indian companies, Kronos India, and permissions associated with it, but that's okay. We're good here. And let's see why we should be closing it. So if I go to my permission set, okay, what I should see is only one permission, and it is not true. There are a lot of permissions that I have in my system, but I only see one. And not just one permission, but there are other areas which also get a by default filter applied called permission set intelligent cloud till the point your upgrade is running or replication is running. So once you're done with it, you need to make sure that you complete your migration. Once you do that, system automatically removes this filter from all the pages wherever Microsoft is applying it so that you see all the data. So here it tells you that you have done all this and you are good with that, and then you say yes, and then you say disable cloud migration. Now once you disable this, all the filter that has been applied on different application area within Business Central are technically over. So now if I go and search for the same page here, permission sets, I should be able to see all the list and no filter applied. So if you see that filter and only intelligent cloud, that means you or your partner have done a replication and forget to disable the cloud migration. Now you close this and you are good at that moment. Now before I let you go, let's understand what I told you at the beginning, why this is important to watch at this moment. Let's review the capacity of these environment to see that do I have the more data or not. Now capacity refreshes after a while, so we can look at that. But in the meantime, I can see that my replicate now have all the companies that I needed, and in all these companies which I have replicated, remember I had some data on customers, vendor, and new table. We did see the new table record count, so that's not a problem. But let's go into the customers and see does my custom data came forward into this particular company or not. So as I come here and I go here, I see all my three fields are here. Okay, let's see. Let me go back to the capacity and see how much database size has been increased for this particular environment. Okay, so 0.06, which was the initial size of the database, is now 0.23 based on all the data that has been copied to the cloud. Okay, so the database size has been increased. We have completed the replication and we have completed the upgrade. Now let's come and talk about why this was important and why you should not miss this. Now remember, with the announcement of Business Central 26, Microsoft have guaranteed that they are going to make breaking changes on all the obsolete field that they have created for all these years. So all the obsolete field from Business Central 14, even from NAV 2016 to be very fair, till Business Central 25, whatever the obsolete fields, obsolete tables were there, they all will be removed. How does that matter? It matters because as soon as that schema is changed, we will not be able to replicate from any version other than 25 to 26. So after the next release, which should be coming sooner than later, a month or so, you will not be able to replicate from BC 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 20, 24 to cloud. Not even to 25. You'll have to upgrade to Business Central 26 on-prem to replicate on cloud. So this is the last time when you can do it. So if you have customers which are in the process of upgrade right now, make sure that you have a Business Central 25 environment available on your cloud before BC 26 is released, because otherwise they'll add an extra step on your upgrade. So you can only replicate from any version of BC right now starting 14 to cloud till Business Central 25. Once Business Central 26 is announced, you'll not be able to replicate from any of these versions. Do you need to rush? Not exactly. You can actually keep And easy, even today, if you're watching this today, you can actually keep an environment with a version 25.3 or 25 whatever, and then use it even if your customer goes live after a month or so, because now you have an option. You already had an option, nothing new here, that you can delay your update for a longer period of time. Okay, so like if you notice that I do have an update on this environment, so I can actually come here and say when I want to update, and I can actually go pretty far into future. So have an environment for yourself, for your go live. If your customer is in, in a stage where they are testing, delay its update, because once 26 is launched, you'll not be able to create a 25 environment. And if you cannot create a 25 environment, then you can't go live with 26, because this is the last month more or less, or month or so, where you can replicate from any version of Business Central on premise to Business Central 25 on cloud. So it's kind of a time crunch right now, but if it helps you, make sure that you know this. Make sure to communicate it to your project team as well as to your customers if needed. If you have a friend whom you know that who's working on upgrade, do let them know that this is happening, so that they are aware about it and customer don't get surprised during the go live weekend. Hopefully I was able to clarify all the doubts and was able to tell you why it is important at this point. And if you have any questions, any business requirement where we can help you in upgrade, trainings, implementation, custom development, or anything, do reach out to us at info@consulting.com. We'll be happy to assist with you. You know the drill. As I said in the beginning, do like if you like the video, do share to the social media so that others get access to it, and do subscribe to the channel if you haven't, and please press that bell icon so that you get notified. There's a lot coming up into this channel, and I would like you not to miss any of these updates. The video was a little bit long, sorry for that, but keep learning and keep sharing whatever you're learning, and I'll see you sooner than later into the next video. Thank you. Have a nice day.